The U.S. should ease off military deployments near China in an act of good faith if high-level defense talks between the two countries are to resume. That's what China's former ambassador to the U.S. said in Singapore Sunday. Speaking with reporters on the sidelines of the Shangri-La Dialogue meeting on security, Si Qian-kai also said that although the two militaries still have channels of communication, he doubts whether there's enough political will to prevent a conflict.
Some people are talking about our ships, our planes getting too close to their ships and their planes. But the real question is, why are they coming all the way across the ocean to our doorsteps? They are getting too close to our territories, to our territorial waters, before anything else. This is not a good way of showing respect to others. It's certainly a disrespect of other countries' sovereignty and territorial integrity. But the problem is that the United States does not always implement the promises they make. So, in other words, very often they hurt their own credibility. There's no sufficient good faith. So how can you ask people to continue such dialogue when a lot of things are said but never done? That's a real problem. I think that the real question is there sufficient political will? Is there sufficient good intention to prevent conflicts? If people have such goodwill and if people act in good faith, they could always find effective ways of communication. I don't think we need more specific channels. I think what is lacking is sufficient goodwill and good faith. We have a very small number of nuclear weapons, or warheads, or whatsoever. So the capability of the two countries are very different. There's a huge gap. So how can they expect us to engage in negotiation with them when they have so many, we have so few? Are they ready to cut down their level to our level, then we can start negotiation on equal footing? Or are they asking us to raise our level to their level so that we can negotiate on equal footing? I don't know. So I think we have to answer these two questions first.
Last week, the Pentagon said that China rejected its proposal for a defense chiefs meeting. Washington says the breakdown in communications raises the risk of an unintended crisis or conflict between the two countries, whose militaries are both active in the Asia-Pacific region. Journalist Liu Jing hosts the program The Point on China's global TV network. She spoke with Professor Chen Dingding, School of International Studies of Jinan University, and Yvonne Eland, Director of Center on Peace and Liberty at Independent Institute, about that situation.
First, Professor Chen, let me go to you. Why did the U.S. reach out to China, in your opinion? What exactly is the United States hoping to discuss during these meetings?
Well, I think the U.S. side wants to, first of all, stabilize U.S.-China relationship a little bit at least, according to the rhetoric. And to do so, we need to have formal exchange mechanisms between the two sides, especially between the two military sides. So this is a very important, mechanism for both governments to maintain regular exchanges and hopefully stabilize the relationship. And but the issue is, of course, whether the U.S. side is sincere in sending out this message, or just cheap talk, trying to use cheap talk to let China to get some concession, compromises in some other areas. This is the real issue.
Now, from the Chinese side, Tang Kefei, who is spokesperson for the Ministry of National Defense, said on Wednesday that what I want to stress is that dialogue and communication cannot be carried out without principle and bottom line. The United States is fully responsible for the current difficulties in U.S.-China military-to-military exchanges. Ivan, what do you think he means? Do you think the United States understand exactly what China means by principle and bottom line?
No, I don't think they do. And I think that the two sides should talk even when they don't agree on the bottom line or the principles. It was simply because both sides have nuclear weapons, and I think that it would be better if their militaries were talking. It's easy to talk to your friends. It's not easy to talk to people who differ with you and may even be adversaries. So I think because of the nuclear weapons issue, I think the military should talk, and that's what we mean by stabilizing the relationship. And there's other reasons too, not just nuclear weapons, but both navies interact with each other in the South China Sea, East China Sea, etc. So even conventional forces can need deconfliction sometimes, and there can be mistakes and incidents that need to be talked about. And if you have an open communication line, that's good. And I think I'm a big proponent of the U.S. improving relations with China, and I think this would be a good thing to have done. And I realize that there's a lot of suspicion on both sides, and there's tension in the relationship. But that's when I think the sides need to talk.
It should be noted that Minister of National Defense Li Shangfu was sanctioned by former Trump administration in 2018 for quote-unquote purchasing Russian weapons, and the sanctions haven't been lifted yet. The Trump administration at least refused to lift those sanctions despite China's strong protest in 2018. Professor Chen, what is the position of the Biden administration on this issue? Will there be a precondition for talks between senior defense officials from both sides to meet?
Well, I think you are exactly right. This is a very important issue. Unfortunately, the Biden administration so far has not indicated any intention to lift such sanctions. Of course, not only on Minister Li Shangfu, but also on some other Chinese, government officials. So this is, would be kind of ridiculous, right? Where you still sanction on, certain individuals, you wanted to have a normal and a friendly discussion. That's impossible. So I think this is common sense. It's not just Chinese government position. I think it's even from an individual perspective, it's a common sense that you cannot sanction someone while trying to be friendly with this individual. Right? I think it's very important for the U.S. government to lift this unnecessary and ridiculous sanctions on Chinese officials, and before we can have a really meaningful and formal discussion. And of course, whether the Biden administration is willing and is bold enough to do such actions, we hope to see some results very soon.
Ivan, what is the United States response on that? I mean, your hope to see more exchanges?
Well, I think the war in Ukraine has dimmed the West's relationship with Russia, and China, of course, gets dragged into that as well. That's the perception in the West, and I agree with you. I think there still are contacts going on, but I think it is very important to have military-to-military contacts with anyone. Even during the Cold War between the Soviets and the U.S., the two sides had a hotline that they could talk on for nuclear stuff and other stuff.
For KPFK, I'm Don DeBar.